Let me warn you before you keep listening. This is not a feel-good talk. This is not advice you've heard before. And if you're comfortable with the way your life and relationships look right now, this may irritate you. Because what I'm about to say challenges the story you've been told about attraction, age, and power. Most men believe younger women stop noticing them because time is against them. That youth wins. That the game is rigged, but that belief is exactly what keeps you invisible. Not your age, not your face, not your past. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Younger women don't lose interest in older men. They lose interest in men who never outgrew their insecurity. No one tells you this because it forces responsibility back onto you. It removes excuses. And most people don't want clarity. They want comfort. What you're about to hear is not about tricks, lines, or strategies. It's about the internal shifts that completely change how people respond to you. Shifts that make some men magnetic without trying, while others try endlessly and get ignored. If you've ever wondered why some older men walk into a room and don't say much, yet attention finds them anyway, if you've ever felt like the harder you try, the further people pull away, if you've sensed that something invisible is working against you but couldn't name it, this video will name it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. By the end, you'll understand why chasing has never worked, why effort is often mistaken for value, and why the men who are pursued are never the ones asking for attention. Stay until the end. Not because I promise motivation, but because this might be the last time you hear the truth explained without sugarcoating. Most men misunderstand why attraction fades as they get older. They assume it's about looks, competition, or youth. But that's surface-level thinking. What actually changes is not how women see you, but how you see yourself. When a man reaches a stage in life where he should be internally settled, yet still seeks external validation, something breaks in his presence. And younger women feel that break instantly, even if they can't explain it. Validation seeking is subtle. It doesn't always look like desperation. Sometimes it looks like over-politeness. Sometimes it sounds like constant explaining. Sometimes it hides behind humor, generosity, or excessive effort. But at its core, it sends one message: I need something from you to feel whole. And no matter how attractive, successful, or experienced you are, need collapses desire. Younger women are not drawn to men who want to be liked. They are drawn to men who are already at peace with who they are. A man who seeks validation is unconsciously outsourcing his self-worth. He's asking someone younger, less experienced, and still forming her identity to reassure him that he matters. That reverses the natural polarity. Attraction doesn't flow upward toward uncertainty. It flows toward groundedness. A self-contained man doesn't rush to fill silence. He doesn't adjust his personality to maintain approval. He doesn't panic when interest fluctuates. His emotional state is not dependent on attention, messages, or reassurance. This stability is rare, and rarity creates gravity. People lean toward what feels solid. Psychologically, this is about locus of control. Men who are chased operate from an internal locus. Their sense of value comes from discipline, competence, principles, and lived experience. Men who are ignored often operate from an external locus. Their confidence rises and falls based on reactions, praise, and validation. Younger women may enjoy attention, but they don't trust men who depend on it. There is also a philosophical layer to this. When you stop seeking validation, you stop negotiating your identity. You no longer shape yourself around what you think will be accepted. Instead, you allow people to encounter you as you are. That honesty creates friction, and friction creates authenticity. Not everyone will like you, but the ones who do will feel it deeply. Older men who are chased understand something uncomfortable. They are willing to be misunderstood. They don't rush to correct perceptions. They don't chase clarity when confusion appears. They trust that alignment reveals itself over time. This patience signals abundance, not scarcity. It communicates that their life is full, their time is valuable, and their approval is not easily won. Younger women live in a world of constant performance. Social media, dating apps, and attention economies have taught them how to attract, but not how to feel safe. When they encounter a man who is not performing, not trying to impress, not fishing for reactions, it disarms them. They don't feel pressured to respond or regulate his emotions. That freedom becomes attractive. This is why trying harder often backfires. Effort without self-containment feels like pressure. Compliments without grounding feel transactional. Availability without purpose feels empty. Validation-seeking men confuse intensity with depth, but depth comes from consistency, not urgency. There is also a biological truth here. Calm nervous systems attract dysregulated ones. A man who is internally regulated offers emotional safety. His presence lowers tension rather than creating it. Younger women, especially those still navigating identity and emotional volatility, are drawn to men who feel like a calm center, not another storm. But this only works if the calm is real. Pretending not to care while internally craving approval creates dissonance, and dissonance is always detected. Self-containment is not an act. It is the result of doing the internal work. It comes from having purpose beyond attraction. It comes from routines that build self-respect. It comes from standards you live by even when no one is watching. When a man is self-contained, rejection doesn't threaten him. It informs him. He doesn't personalize disinterest. He doesn't argue with reality. He understands that attraction is not something to be negotiated. It is something to be discovered. This mindset alone shifts how others respond to him. Younger women chase older men who don't chase because they sense that these men are not trying to extract something from them. There is no hidden agenda, no emotional hunger, no need to be rescued from loneliness. That absence of need creates space. And in that space, curiosity grows. Self-contained men also speak differently. They choose their words carefully. They don't overshare to build intimacy prematurely. They allow connection to unfold naturally. They are present without being intrusive. This pacing signals emotional maturity, which is far more attractive than charm. And here's the paradox most men miss. When you stop seeking validation, you become more selective. And when you become selective, your attention gains value. Younger women notice when a man is not impressed by everything, when his interest feels earned rather than automatic. That discernment creates desire. This doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. It means becoming anchored. Warmth without need is powerful. Kindness without expectation is rare. Interest without attachment is magnetic. These qualities only emerge when you are no longer using others to regulate your self-worth. So the work is not external. It's not about strategies, lines, or tactics. It's about building a life that feels meaningful even in silence. A life that doesn't collapse when attention fades. A life where your sense of worth is not up for negotiation. Because when you no longer need to be chosen, you start choosing. And the moment you become the one who chooses, everything shifts. The man who stops asking, "Do you want me?" and starts asking, "Does this align with my values?" becomes dangerous in the best way. He is calm, he is centered, he is free, and that freedom is exactly what makes others want to stay. Once a man becomes self-contained, the next thing that determines whether attraction deepens or disappears is how he handles his emotions. Not how he feels them, but how he governs them. This is where many older men quietly sabotage themselves. They believe emotional expression equals honesty, and emotional intensity equals passion. But attraction doesn't respond to intensity. It responds to regulation. Emotional control is not about being cold, silent, or detached. It is about not being ruled by your impulses. It is the ability to feel something without immediately acting on it. Younger women are extremely sensitive to emotional volatility, even when they say they want openness. What they actually respond to is emotional safety, and safety is created by consistency, not expression. A man who reacts quickly reveals his emotional center is fragile. A man who pauses reveals strength. That pause communicates that his emotions are processed internally, not projected outward. This alone changes how he is perceived. It signals maturity, leadership, and self-respect. Think about how attraction works on a nervous system level. When someone is reactive, unpredictable, or emotionally needy, the body goes into alert mode. When someone is calm, measured, and grounded, the body relaxes. Desire grows in relaxation, not in tension. This is why emotional control is not just psychological, but biological. Younger women live in emotional overstimulation, social validation, constant messaging, attention loops, and comparison culture keep their nervous systems active. When they encounter a man who doesn't escalate emotionally, who doesn't overreact to silence, who doesn't chase reassurance, it creates contrast. And contrast creates attraction. This is why tests exist. Emotional tests are not about cruelty, they are unconscious checks for stability. When interest fluctuates, when communication pulls back, when moods shift, the question being asked is simple: can this man stay centered, or will he collapse into insecurity? Men who react emotionally answer that question immediately, and often in the wrong way. Older men who are chaste understand something subtle. They don't take emotional changes personally. They don't interpret distance as rejection or engagement as validation. They observe patterns instead of reacting to moments. That ability to zoom out gives them emotional leverage. Emotional control also shows up in conflict. When disagreement arises, most men feel the urge to defend, explain, or dominate. But control means you don't fight to win. You seek to understand whether alignment exists. You speak clearly, briefly, and without emotional charge. This signals confidence in your position. Needing to convince someone of your worth is already a loss of power. There is a philosophical element here about identity. Men who identify too strongly with being liked lose emotional control when that identity is threatened. Men who identify with their values remain stable regardless of external response. This is why emotional mastery is rooted in self-definition. If you know who you are, emotional turbulence doesn't destabilize you. Younger women are drawn to men whose emotions are predictable, not dramatic. Predictability doesn't mean boring, it means reliable. Reliability builds trust, and trust allows attraction to stay. Emotional chaos might create excitement in the short term, but it erodes respect over time. This is especially important for older men because age amplifies emotional behavior. When a young man reacts emotionally, it is often excused as immaturity. When an older man reacts emotionally, it signals insecurity. The same behavior is interpreted differently. Emotional control is not optional as you age, it becomes essential. Control also means knowing when not to engage. Silence, when used consciously, is a powerful emotional boundary. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every mood deserves attention. Emotional discipline allows you to choose where your energy goes. Younger women notice this restraint because it makes your attention feel intentional, not automatic. Another mistake men make is confusing emotional honesty with emotional dumping. Sharing emotions is healthy when it builds connection. Dumping emotions is unhealthy when it shifts emotional responsibility onto someone else. Younger women instinctively avoid men who make them feel like emotional caretakers. Emotional control ensures that vulnerability is shared, not transferred. There is also an element of leadership here. Leadership is not about control over others. It is about control over self. A man who cannot regulate his emotions cannot lead emotionally. Younger women may resist authority, but they are drawn to emotional leadership. They want to feel that someone is steady when they are not. This steadiness creates polarity. Polarity is the dynamic tension between groundedness and expression. When a man is grounded, it allows a woman to express freely without fear of destabilizing him. This dynamic deepens attraction because it creates emotional permission. Emotional control also prevents overinvestment. When a man invests emotionally too early, he collapses polarity. Control allows him to pace connection appropriately. He doesn't imagine futures prematurely. He stays present. Presence without projection is powerful. This is why men who master emotional control often feel less anxious overall. They are no longer riding emotional highs and lows. They are anchored. That anchor becomes attractive because it offers refuge from chaos. But control requires practice. It requires sitting with discomfort instead of reacting. It requires separating feeling from behavior. It requires understanding that emotions are information, not instructions. Men who treat emotions as commands become reactive. Men who treat emotions as data become strategic. Younger women chase older men who remain calm not because calm is impressive, but because calm is rare. It signals that this man has been through difficulty and emerged centered rather than bitter. It shows emotional resilience, which is deeply attractive. Ultimately, emotional control is an act of self-respect. When you regulate your reactions, you communicate that your inner world is valuable and protected. You don't give access to chaos. You don't allow external behavior to dictate your internal state. And here is the truth to sit with. The man who controls his emotions controls the room, not through force, but through presence. Not through dominance, but through stability. Master your reactions, and you won't need to chase respect or desire. They will naturally move toward you. Once a man becomes self-contained and emotionally regulated, the next shift is subtle but decisive. It's the moment he stops performing and starts standing. This is where grounded leadership replaces effort, and effort quietly loses its power. Most men don't realize how much of their behavior is driven by performance. They talk to be noticed, agree to be liked, exaggerate to be admired, but performance is rooted in insecurity, and insecurity is always felt, even when it's hidden behind confidence. Younger women are surrounded by performance. Social media has trained people to present curated versions of themselves. Dating has become a marketplace of impressions. Everyone is selling something. So when a man shows up without selling, without trying to convince, without packaging himself for approval, it disrupts expectations, and disruption creates curiosity. Grounded leadership begins with inner clarity. A man who knows what he stands for does not need to announce it. His behavior reflects it naturally. He chooses where to go, what to tolerate, how to spend his time, and who has access to his energy. These decisions are not dramatic, they are quiet, but quiet certainty is far more powerful than loud confidence. Leadership is often misunderstood as dominance, but true leadership is about direction, not control. It is the ability to move forward without dragging others along. Younger women respond to this because it removes pressure. They don't feel managed or persuaded. They feel invited into a path that already exists. Men who perform often over-explain. They justify their choices. They narrate their intentions. They think clarity builds trust. But excessive explanation signals doubt. A grounded man explains only when necessary. His actions do most of the communication. This restraint creates authority because it suggests he trusts his own judgment. There is a psychological comfort in being around someone who is decisive without being rigid. Decisiveness tells the nervous system that someone is paying attention, that choices are being made with awareness. This is especially attractive to younger women who are often navigating uncertainty in their own lives. They don't want someone to decide for them, but they are drawn to someone who can decide for himself. Grounded leadership also shows up in pacing. Performing men rush. They rush intimacy, validation, and connection. They mistake speed for chemistry. A grounded man moves at a natural rhythm. He allows things to unfold. This pacing signals abundance. It suggests he is not afraid of losing opportunities because his life is not built around scarcity. Younger women notice when a man is not trying to lock them in emotionally. They feel the difference between interest and pressure. Pressure creates resistance. Interest creates openness. Grounded leadership eliminates pressure because it is not driven by fear of loss. Another aspect of leadership is standards. Performing men adjust their standards to be accepted. Grounded men live by their standards regardless of outcome. This consistency is deeply attractive. It communicates self-respect. It also creates a sense of safety because boundaries are clear. Boundaries are not walls. They are guidelines for interaction. When a man enforces them calmly, without anger or explanation, it sends a message: this is how I live. Younger women may test these boundaries not to break them, but to see if they exist. When they do, respect grows. Grounded leadership also means knowing when to let go. Performance clings, leadership releases. A man who can walk away from misalignment without drama demonstrates emotional maturity. He shows that his identity is not dependent on any single connection. This detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. There is a philosophical depth here about agency. When you stop performing, you reclaim agency over your life. You are no longer reacting to how you are perceived. You are acting in accordance with who you are. This shift changes everything. People respond differently to men who move from intention rather than reaction. Younger women are especially sensitive to this because they live in a world that constantly reacts to them. Attention, compliments, expectations, and projections surround them. When they meet a man who is not reactive, not impressionable, not swayed by every emotional wave, it feels grounding. It feels real. Grounded leadership is also about presence. Performing men are often in their heads, monitoring reactions, adjusting behavior, calculating responses. Grounded men are present. They listen without strategizing. They speak without rehearsing. Presence creates connection far more effectively than charm. This presence allows silence to exist without discomfort. Silence becomes a shared space rather than a threat. Younger women feel this immediately. Silence with a performing man feels awkward. Silence with a grounded man feels safe. Safety deepens attraction because it allows authenticity to emerge. Leadership without force also creates trust. When a man leads without imposing, it communicates respect. He does not need compliance to feel secure. He offers direction and allows choice. This balance of confidence and freedom is rare, and rarity is magnetic. It's important to understand that grounded leadership is not something you switch on in dating situations. It is a byproduct of how you live. It comes from having purpose, discipline, and values outside of attraction. When your life has structure, your presence has weight. Younger women chase older men who embody this not because they want to be led, but because they want to feel that someone is steady. Steadiness allows playfulness. Structure allows freedom. Leadership creates space for desire to breathe. And here is the truth most men avoid. The moment you stop performing for approval, some people will lose interest. And that is not a loss. It is alignment correcting itself. The people who remain will be responding to who you are, not who you pretended to be. This is the power of grounded leadership. It filters without effort. It attracts without pursuit. It commands respect without demanding it. When you stop trying to impress and start standing in your truth, you don't need to lead loudly. Your presence will do the work for you. At the highest level, after self-containment, emotional regulation, and grounded leadership are in place, there is one final shift that changes everything. It is the point where a man no longer ties his sense of worth to outcomes. This is where true attraction begins, and it is also where most men fail to go. Detachment from outcome is not indifference. It is freedom from need, and freedom is the most attractive state a human being can occupy. Most men are emotionally invested in results long before results exist. They imagine futures, build expectations, and assign meaning to small signals. When things don't go as planned, their emotional world collapses. Younger women feel this collapse instantly. Even when nothing is said, the energy changes. Need enters the room and attraction quietly exits. Detachment means you show up fully, but you are not attached to being chosen. You are present, but not clinging. You care, but you are not dependent. This balance is rare because it requires inner security. Men who lack it confuse detachment with apathy. But apathy is withdrawal. Detachment is engagement without self-betrayal. Psychologically, outcome attachment is rooted in fear. Fear of abandonment, Fear of rejection, fear of wasted time. These fears drive behavior that feels urgent, controlling, or emotionally heavy. Detachment dissolves fear by shifting focus inward. Instead of asking, will this work out? You ask, is this aligned with who I am? Younger women sense this shift immediately. A man who is detached does not pressure the moment. He does not rush clarity. He does not demand certainty. His calm communicates trust in life itself. That trust feels stabilizing in a world of constant uncertainty. There is also a philosophical truth here. Attachment to outcome implies that happiness exists in the future. Detachment anchors happiness in the present. A man who is fulfilled now is not trying to use someone else to complete his story. He invites them into it, but he does not hand them authorship. This is why detachment increases attraction rather than reducing it. When someone knows you will be okay with or without them, your interest feels real, not desperate. Desire flourishes when it is chosen, not when it is required. Outcome attachment also creates emotional blindness. Men become so focused on preserving a connection that they ignore misalignment. They tolerate disrespect. They explain away inconsistency. Detachment restores clarity. It allows you to see behavior for what it is, not what you hope it means. Younger women are often testing this without realizing it. Not consciously, but energetically. They want to know if a man will lose himself to keep them. When he doesn't, when he remains centered even if things fade or change, respect grows. Respect is the foundation of long-term attraction. Detachment also changes how you handle loss. Rejection no longer wounds your identity. It becomes information. You don't internalize it. You integrate it. This emotional resilience is deeply attractive because it signals maturity. It shows that your ego is not fragile. There is something profoundly calm about a man who doesn't chase closure. He doesn't need everything explained. He doesn't demand emotional guarantees. He understands that clarity unfolds with time. This patience communicates abundance. It says, my life continues regardless. Younger women chase older men who embody this because it feels like emotional safety. They don't feel responsible for his happiness. They don't feel trapped by expectations. Freedom becomes part of the connection, not a threat to it. Detachment also enhances masculinity because it aligns with leadership. Leaders make decisions without being paralyzed by outcomes. They act from values, not fear. In relationships, this means choosing behavior that aligns with self-respect, even if it risks loss. Most men think walking away means losing, but walking away from misalignment is winning yourself back. It is choosing integrity over attachment. Younger women may not always say it, but they feel it. And often, it deepens attraction rather than ending it. This does not mean playing games or pretending not to care. Detachment is not emotional distance. It is emotional sovereignty. You own your feelings without letting them control your actions. You remain open without being attached. When a man is detached, he listens differently. He is not scanning for reassurance. He is not interpreting every word as a signal. He hears what is said and observes what is done. This grounded attention creates intimacy without anxiety. Detachment also prevents overinvestment. You invest proportionally, not impulsively. You allow trust to be built through consistency, not promises. This pacing creates stability, which younger women crave even when they don't articulate it. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you will be okay no matter how things unfold. This confidence is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It simply exists, and people feel it. Attraction shifts dramatically when a man stops negotiating with fear, when he accepts uncertainty as part of life, when he releases the need to control outcomes. He becomes present, and presence is the rarest form of power. Ultimately, detachment from outcome is an act of self-respect. It says, I will not abandon myself for the comfort of certainty. That message resonates deeply, especially with those who are still learning to trust themselves. And here is the final truth to sit with. The man who is willing to lose anything that costs him his center becomes impossible to replace.